Hello and welcome back to everyone that's tuned in to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're back as a duo, as it has always been in the channel. Just wanted to clarify because of some things going on in my professional life, also trying to achieve some other things in terms of my career. Just a little disclaimer why I've been a little absent lately, so huge props to Brenden for holding it all together. In the meantime, please make sure, I saw some comments in the past videos, make sure to watch and listen. I think that he's doing a great job and we all grow into it, and when we do solo is a little weird, but today we're back to business and it's a video that I think is really exciting. A lot of things got thrown around on who's going to move, who's not going to move, and the transfer window is always chaotic at times, and we saw a few sagas throughout the transfer window, and today we're going to be talking about the moves that did happen or didn't happen, were supposed to happen. Just a review of the USMNT transfer window. Brenden, straight to the point with the A-teamers. We have to start with the biggest saga that ended up being exactly like last summer. Weston McKennie, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and just quickly before we get into it, this won't take long, I just want to give a little disclaimer. Obviously, we can't talk about every transfer in this video. It's already going to be long enough as it is, and there was so many. If you guys want our thoughts on any other transfers that happened, some under the radar ones, definitely comment. We'll be sure to reply to all of the ones that we can, and we could also potentially do a video for all of the youth transfers that happened, the up and coming guys. So with that out of the way, let's get into Weston McKennie. And yeah, like you said, definitely the saga of the summer. We're going to be starting this video with a player who actually didn't end up leaving, also ending the video with a player who didn't end up leaving. So stay tuned for that, a little sneak peek. But for McKennie, it's basically a deja vu from last season. I mean, he didn't even have a locker. He did actually get a preseason, which was good. I think that was the crucial part last season. He impressed in preseason, came back, got his locker back, got his starting spot back at Juventus, which he even didn't have the season before, which was kind of crazy. Had an excellent season, as we know, leading them in assists. Then the same summer, they try to get rid of him with a year left in his contract. He just says, screw you, I'm not going anywhere, and ends up staying, ends up back in the plans. That being said, he hasn't really played yet, and I applaud what he did last summer. I think that shows a real mentality that maybe some of our players are lacking. However, I do think that this summer was probably the time to move on, just because, I mean, we know what's going to happen next summer. It's going to be the exact same saga because he only extended for 1 year. He's going to have a year left in his contract next summer. They're going to try to get rid of him. Eventually, he has to leave to get regular minutes, especially since they did strengthen the midfield this summer, bringing in Douglas Luiz, Thuram, Coop Miners. It's just not ideal, really, for his situation. I just don't think he's going to get many minutes this year. Them being in Champions League will help, especially with the extended format. But for probably our best midfielder, definitely our best box-to-box midfielder, you just want to see him getting regular minutes. And even if it took a little slight step down of a level, I think it still would have been worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you because, again, the resiliency he showed last summer, amazing to see. But this summer, looking at that renewal, that's the most concerning part for me. They want to keep him at, he's still a valuable asset where he still has a contract, so they can still resell him, sell him. And I think they really wanted to just revamp the entire midfield. We see that Rabiot is going to be leaving. I think that they wanted to ship out West as well. I'm not sure he would get that many minutes. But all things considered, there were rumors with Cincinnati. So if that was the option, I mean, I'm all for him staying. But overall, I'm a little bit worried about this one. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Comment down below. What do you think about West staying at Juventus? No one thought that it was going to happen at some point. It seemed like it was certain. But he did stay. We'll have to watch out to see if it's for better or for worse. Moving on to Malik, Tillman, and Sergiño Dest. A bit of a boring topic right here. They just made their moves permanent. I'm glad that Serge got to stay. There were some doubts on whether he'd stay or not because of his injury. But your thoughts, Brenden? PSV ultimately showing faith in the duel.
Yeah, and let us know what you think about all of these different transfers, not just McKennie. There is so many interesting topics that we can debate. But for Tillman and Dest, I'll keep it pretty short. They both extended their loans, made them permanent, and I think it was the perfect move for both. I mean, we saw how good of a season they both had last season in their first year in the Eredivisie, back in the Eredivisie for Dest, since he came from Ajax originally. But Tillman having an incredible season, a Team of the Year worthy season, although I don't think he made it. And I think this year he's just going to take the next leap. Hopefully, another season or two, he can be ready for another jump, maybe to a top 5 league, a bigger club there, move to another team that's competing in Champions League, Europa League, some level like that. I do think he has the quality to do that after another couple of good seasons. And for Dest, I think this is absolutely crucial because we saw how good he was last season. However, the ACL tear was a real concern for his career, to be honest, because I mean, we know Barca didn't want him. He had that whole thing with Milan before he ended up at PSV. And I just fear that if PSV didn't buy him permanently, he would have really had no place to go, just because, I mean, I think it's fair to say, at least for now, he's not cut out for the highest of levels at the club level, at least. So I think PSV signing him back, it's really a match made in heaven, and I'm very excited to see how good he is, whether he maintains his level or even as a step up when he comes back from his injury in the start of next year.
Yeah, if he was healthy, I would have been a little bit concerned about him staying at PSV, but all things considered, it's like you said, a match made in heaven, and allows him to stay there one more year and slowly get back to shape. Hopefully he comes back with the same pace and the same burst that he had before. But moving on, talking about players that went back to their clubs, well, he went back, and this is a crazy one. At some point, I'll be honest, I never imagined I'd say that Brenden Aaronson is a Leeds player, but he's back there, and he seems to be doing quite well as well. So against all the odds, he's in the most physical league, and he's doing quite well for Leeds. If he helps them get promoted back to the Prem, it's the perfect story, the redemption. Your thoughts on Brendinho going back to England, Brayden, and how much did it shock you when it was announced that he was staying?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When he announced that he was staying, I was a little skeptical. I mean, I'm probably the biggest Brenden Aaronson fan there is on the planet. Probably rate him the highest of anybody as well, besides himself, of course. But I was a little bit concerned on not necessarily his performance level. I always thought he would be very, very good in the championship. Just the players around him and the minutes he'd get, but it's worked out perfectly. They sold Sergiño, who was their starting number 10. I mean, he was even starting on the wing before Rutter left, but now he's given the reins at the number 10 role to be the creative force in the midfield. And like you said, he started on fire. I think it's fair to say he's been Leeds' best player so far. Maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think top 3, no debate. Already 2 goals. He's going to continue to score more, get some assists as well. His teammates have missed a couple big chances. I remember going back to the Prem season where he should have had so many assists to Bamford, and he missed so many sitters. But hopefully it'll be different now. And honestly, I'll say it now. I don't know if this is controversial, but I think Brendan's a better player than Rutter is anyway. Despite the huge money move to Brighton, I'm sure he'll do well there because Fabian Hurstler is a genius and Brighton are so well run. But I really think Aaronson's a better player. I think it's an upgrade for Leeds, and I'm just so happy to see him back. I know he's technically staying at his club, but it feels like the biggest transfer of all.
All right, and now just to explain a little bit on the order we're doing, we know there were some other sagas, but we're going with the A-teamers, guys that are typically with the A-team. So next up is the MLS Discovery Rights transfer right there with Johnny Cardoso, and I'm surprised. I just got to say, a lot of people don't really know how to read, and they thought he was moving to Spurs, but no, it was just that Spurs acquired the Discovery Rights. Let's call it what it is, really. A priority if he's ever to move to the Prem or move out of Betis. A little bit crazy because Spurs they've done this in the past when they sent Modric to Madrid, and they had priority on a lot of Madrid players. They didn't get anyone. But anyways, Johnny's staying at Betis. I think it was the right call after all. I mean, the other clubs that were interested in him, I think that he's just at the right spot right now to keep developing. And actually, he needs to fight for his spot a little bit maybe because he's going to be under pressure this year as well. What are your thoughts, Brayden? Do you think that's ever going to materialize? And it's kind of a crazy sort of headline.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're starting with the A-teamers, and then we'll eventually make our way to the Olympians, the young guys, and then a couple of the vets as well before ending it out with Gio Reyna's whole situation. But for Johnny, I'll admit, I've been very critical of a lot of MLS rules in the past, especially the discovery rights thing. I think it's very stupid. That being said, I might have to eat my words a little bit because I actually think this is really good business from Tottenham. The one thing that is concerning to me is Johnny's situation at Betis right now. It's kind of weird. He's been starting for them in the Conference League in their qualifiers, which they only had one tie to go against because, I mean, they did so well. They were in a top league. They had to beat a Ukrainian team. I'm not even going to bother pronouncing the name because I guarantee it will be wrong. But he started in both of those games, comfortable 5-0 win on aggregate. But they've already had 3 league games, and he's been on the bench for all of them. Maybe that's due to the fixture congestion with the Conference League, but I think it's fair to say, especially considering the quality of opponents, the starters have been going in the league, the backups have been going in the Conference League, and I think that's going to maintain throughout the season, at least as long as they're in Europe. And if Johnny can't break into the starting lineup, I think it could be a huge downfall for him, not necessarily in terms of his career or anything, but just his overall stock in the transfer market, because last season he came into Betis mid-season, did so well to adjust, was one of their top players, and now if he's going to be a backup to Marc Roca and William Carvalho, who Carvalho's past it. He was a good player in the past, but he's a little bit past it. And Marc Roca, I don't think, was ever good. So the fact that Johnny's behind both of them, I think is a little concerning. That being said, if Tottenham do somehow get this transfer to go through, I really like it. I love what Tottenham's building at their project with Ange. They just signed Lucas Bergwall, one of my favorite players, the Swedish international, the youth player, and Archie Gray as well for the midfield. They've still got players like Madison, Pape Sarr. I really like what they're building at Tottenham, and if Johnny could join that, I think he fits in perfectly at the 6. I hope it does happen because the buy option is very reasonable. It's basically what Real Betis were asking for him this summer. And again, if he can just break into the starting lineup and have a good season, I do think that move could materialize. And if it's not that, it'll be to another big club.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned as well, but I have a bit of a different opinion. I think that Carvalho and Rokas, they work well. I think Carvalho is still a good player, in my opinion. He's a perfect guy for Johnny to play right next to, in my opinion. I think that's how Johnny thrives, if he has a guy like that. And now moving on to a guy that didn't move, very disappointed with this one. I think we should be moving on from him in the USMNT is Matt Turner. Well, he's sticking around. What do you think about the prospects of his career, Brenden?
Well, I'll just correct you a little bit. He did technically move. It doesn't feel like a move because he ends up going on loan to Crystal Palace for this season, which I'm actually really frustrated with, just from his situation perspective, because we had heard news earlier in the summer. I mean, we've been doing these transfer updates basically all window. We had heard news that Turner had interest from La Liga clubs, from Bundesliga clubs that would potentially be starting him on loan, and then Nottingham Forest rejected them all because they wanted to sell him for a profit somehow, despite him being probably the worst goalkeeper in the entire Premier League last season. They wanted to somehow get back their $9 million that they spent on him the previous summer. It was just never realistic, and now he's going out on loan to be a backup at Crystal Palace. That being said, he is at least now a backup instead of a third stringer at a much better club. So I do think there's a little bit of an upgrade there, but in terms of the other options he had, it's just really a shame for him. That being said, I don't really care because I think we should move on from him from a national team perspective anyway, but he's a really nice guy on a personal level, so it'd be nice to see him continue to succeed in Europe, but I just don't think this move is going to do that for him.
Absolutely insane from Forest when I saw that they wanted to recoup their money. You got to take your L's at the end of the day, or else you just lose the guy for free. I mean, should have let him go too. Maybe he does well on loan and then you can sell him for a little bit more. I don't know. Insane business right there, in my opinion. But moving on to Mark McKenzie, who a lot of you guys were very critical of because of the games that he has played so far for Toulouse. But he has made the move. He did the step up, and let's applaud the guy a little bit for getting out of his comfort zone. He even captained. It was more of an honor as a goodbye, but he captained his club in Belgium. He's a good player there, adored by the fans, and he moved to France. It's not the strongest of leagues, but they do have some good games here and there, and it's a step up for him. He moved to Toulouse. What do you think, Brenden? Is the beginning of the season a little bit of an indicator? Some people are even linking him to being Palmer Brown 2.0, but I think that's crazy. What do you think? Do you think that McKenzie can turn it around? Do you think it'll be a good move in hindsight, or would you have rather see him move to Germany, like we reported that there were some interests there as well there?
Well, I mean, I'll just say he's so much better than Palmer Brown, who never even had the level to play in Ligue 1 in the first place. I don't even know how that move materialized. Well, I do, because he went to Man City's sister club after he somehow got a move to their youth teams. But anyway, I would have liked to see McKenzie go to the Bundesliga, like there was interest. I just think it's a natural fit, and it's such a fun league to watch as well. We have so many Americans there. From that aspect, at least, it would have been a win-win. It's a better league than Ligue 1. I think there's no debate about that. And his new club's goal seems to be to lose every single game. I think that's why they called the club that. But I think a lot of the people in the comments have been a little too harsh on McKenzie. His debut, I will say, wasn't great against Nice, but despite the loss to Marseille, I thought he was pretty solid. I think he was at least their best center back, and Marseille and Nice are I mean, it's a bad league, let's be honest, but they're two of the best clubs in the league. They're two of the ones that can actually be taken seriously. So I think when he goes against some of the mid-table to relegation battling teams, I think he'll really excel. And at the end of the day, it is still a step up from Genk, where he had, I don't want to say overstayed his welcome, but he was there for the perfect amount of time, became one of the best center backs in the league, was great at Genk. It was time for a step up, which Cameron Carter-Vickers and Auston Trusty take notes. He actually made the step up, and I think that's huge, and it could potentially reward him with a USMNT starting spot.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to commend the guy. Like you said, Trusty, in my opinion, backwards move. We're going to be talking about him next, actually, because he moved to Celtic. And I think that just comparing a little bit, yeah, it's not the strongest of leagues, but some clubs there, they can play well. And it can be a very technical league, not the highest of speed, but I think it can be a lot better than Belgium, for example, than the Scottish Premiership. So you have to say, I think that Ligue 1 is levels above those two leagues. So at the end of the day, not the flashiest of moves, but he's giving himself a chance to improve as a player. Whereas Auston Trusty moving to Celtic, relegating himself to just mediocrity, in my opinion. It's about the same as moving to MLS. I'm curious to see what you think about this one, because last year we said it could have been good in hindsight if he stays, plays in the championship, and gets back. Well, no, he moved to Celtic. What do you think, Brenden?
Well, I don't know if you saw my reaction to what you were saying previously. I thought you were talking about the Scottish League when you were talking about Ligue 1, hence why I was like, oh, absolutely no technical quality there or anything like that. But I will say, in hindsight, I think I was a little too harsh on this move when it was first made. I was basically everywhere saying that this was a horrible move. I had a lot of Celtic fans come after me for that, which, listen, I'm not taking anything away from the club. I know, and everyone knows, it's one of the biggest clubs in Europe historically. Massive club, great fan base, and I mean they win everything in Scotland nowadays. They seem to have surpassed Rangers, taken that next step, which is good. And with the expanded Champions League format, he will be playing 8 games instead of 6, like we saw in the past season, which is an upgrade. And I will say their schedule does look very doable. So if they are a team that's worth anything, I think they have a decent chance to get out of the group stage at least. Are they going to be that? I don't know. I still have my doubts, but the silver lining here is at least he'll be starting at Sheffield United. He started a couple of games, but that was only because their starting center backs both got injured at the same time, which was kind of funny. And I just don't know if Trusty had a spot at Sheffield long term. It was also just kind of a nightmare club. I mean, last season they were absolutely horrible, bad place to be. So Celtic, from that aspect, is a step up from the play. I mean, outside of the Champions League games, we've talked about it so many times when mentioning CCV. We know how bad the league is. It's so much worse than the Championship. I still think I would have preferred a lower move within the Championship to maybe a mid-table club, because I think Sheffield United are probably going to be up towards the top of the table. But at least he'll be starting for a European club. There's some positives to take away from that. But I will say this, if he's not better than CCV for Celtic, major concerns.
I'll disagree a little bit. I think it's a horrible move. I know Celtic is a historic club. I really enjoyed watching them when I was growing up. Nakamura was one of my favorite players. Petrov, Scott Brown. I thought that was a club that could actually go toe-to-toe and put some very good ties against Man United, doing some notable results. These days, it just gets slapped around. Maybe it's because of commercially the league really went down when Rangers got relegated, had to climb all the way up, and it's never been the same since. I think they'll just get slapped around in 8 games now instead of 6. And honestly, I'm very, very concerned with this one. He probably had better options. Just staying to the Championship, I would have applauded that more than just moving to Celtic. But anyways, maybe I'm being too harsh. Let us know again in the comments below. I really would have liked to see a guy like McKenzie step up, because there is a vacant spot right next to Chris Richards for 26. Now, talking about spots for 26, we'll be moving on to the Olympians, the young guys that I think they did an all right tournament. Nothing bad, definitely better than what we saw at Copa America. But we'll start with one of the guys that was a main character right here on the weekly saga of the transfer updates, Tanner Tessmann. Out of nowhere, it's funny, on the last update, he was close to being linked to Torino again, and Vanoli gave an interview. Well, he ends up at Lyon. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest of fans of Lyon. I'm a huge fan of Tanner Tessmann. It is a step up, definitely, especially because Venezia will just get relegated. But I'm curious to see your overall analysis on this one, Brenden. Does it really help Tessmann maximize his chances with the USMNT or not?
I think it does, because at least he knows now that he has a stable club situation, and that's all I really wanted. At the start of the window, I was like, okay, go to Torino, go to Fiorentina, one of these two clubs. Anything else, the Inter move, I had my doubts about, just because he would have gone back on loan, and realistically, it was going to be a commercial signing. I love Tessmann. I think you're higher on him than anyone is, but I mean, I'm also very high on him. I just don't think he had the quality to be an Inter player. But now he has a stable situation at Lyon. Again, a lot of our guys seem to be going to the French league now, which is definitely an interesting development. I'm not sure too much how to feel about it. And I will say Lyon to start the season have been very concerning. They've been absolutely horrible, down towards the relegation zone. However, I will say the exact same thing happened last year, and they still finished sixth. Incredible second half of the year. If they can just slightly improve on that, I think it's still a step in the right direction. They will be in Europa League this season, which I think is also a good thing. The first time Tessmann will be playing in a European competition. It's a huge step up from Venezia, from Serie B. But I do think, all in all, I'm very happy with the move. I think he'll fit in perfectly at Lyon. Fans already seem to love him, despite the fact that he's only played like 5 minutes for the club. I think he's going to be a natural fit there for one of the historically biggest clubs in France. So I'm a big fan of this move.
Yeah, I like that. Well, they started horribly, but then they seem to be picking it up. Signing Wilfried Zaha really helps, in my opinion. Veretout, another really good midfielder going forward. I think that Tessmann's going to get a lot of minutes at a big club, and they'll have a better season than last year. I think that first two games, too, everything was a little bit of a mess, but the club just got some new funds as well, so they don't have any financial turmoil. Overall, a good move. But I just don't really like the French league too much. I think that Tessmann could have gone somewhere else. But hey, if that was the most stable scenario he could get, that I have to applaud that. And I think that overall, props to him for making the move and not sticking. It would have been easy to reverse back to Venezia because Antonelli was opening up the door for him a little bit, but he was set on the move. I think it was the right call at the end of the day. And I will move on to another Olympian, who's going to be Aidan Morris. This is maybe a surprise for some, but he's hitting the ground running really at Borough. So maybe he could be the move of the season. I think the fans seem to love him there. He almost got an assist for the opposing team on his debut, but hey, things have quiet down and he's doing really well there. So Aidan Morris from the Crew to Borough. Props to the Crew for selling him for a good value that was realistic as well. Just wanted to get that out there. Your thoughts, Brenden?
Yeah, well, one quick little correction. He wasn't an Olympian. He was going to be before the move, but I actually think it was a huge positive that he wasn't there. No, I'm not saying this because I think he would have made the team worse. I'm saying this because he got his preseason at Borough, and it seems to have been paid off tenfold. I mean, he's been so good. I think everyone who's been watching the channel for a while now knows how critical I've been of Aidan Morris in the past because of his past performances for the USMNT, even for the U23s in the lead up to the Olympics. And I mean, he stayed in MLS for a while, but I think he completed the league. He did everything he needed to do there, being one of the best players for, I think it's fair to say, the Crew, I think, are one of the best teams in MLS history. They're just such a good, well-run club with a great manager, and just everything about the club is trending up. And he makes the move at the right time. Again, like you said, huge props to Columbus for letting him realize his dream to go to Europe. And I mean, again, he actually has that dream, unlike some other players that we've seen in the past. So huge props to the guy as well. I actually did pick him for best transfer when we did the USMNT season predictions video, and I'm very happy with that pick because he's been so good. And I'll say, I said that video, I'll say it again now. I do think Aidan Morris will be a Premier League player next year. Do I think he's necessarily at that level yet? I'm not sure. I need to see a little bit more of him in the championship. It's still a small sample size, but if he continues his form and if he impresses in this upcoming USMNT camp, it could be a huge stock up for him, and it could be the move that he needed to really put his way back into the USMNT perspective.
Yeah, I think he has some work to do, but props to him for making the move. I can't stress it enough on how happy I am that the Crew let him go. And they were very classy throughout the entire process. They saw that he wanted to go, let the guy go, and props to him for also finding a club that he's getting minutes. I don't know who his agent is, but hey, congrats, man. I think that this is a really good move for him, and it may be the best one because he's going to be a regular player there. Imagine he helps them get to the Prem. That would be amazing. And now moving on to Paxten Aaronson. I think this move happened because he impressed when he was with Vitesse. Frankfurt seems to have a long-term goal for him, a long-term plan, which is nice to see. And they sent him out to Utrecht, which is going to hurt the chances of Taylor Booth, in my opinion. But he made the move there. And what do you think about this one, the second of the Aaronsons, Brenden?
Yeah, I'll start with the positives because I think there's a couple you can take away from this. I mean, we saw how good he was at the Olympics. I think one of the standouts as a versatile option too, playing all over the front line. And I think it's a good sign that he moved to the right size club. Coming from Vitesse, he was very good in the Eredivisie. Granted, for probably the second worst club in the league. I know they finished last, but that was due to the point deduction. I think Volendam were worse than them, but it doesn't really matter. They got relegated regardless. He was playing at that level, but he was basically the only good player for them. Utrecht saw that, decided to take him in on loan, and I think it's just the perfect step up. It's not back to Frankfurt, which would have been a huge jump and something that, I mean, I love the guy, but I'm not sure if he would have been completely ready for it this season. But if he continues to impress at Utrecht, and I think the first 4 games there's been some very positive signs, had a great Trivela assist, which was very nice, and also scored a great solo goal that was eventually called back for offsides on the guy who played it to him. But so far, I think overall he's been very solid to start. And I think if he does continue to impress at Utrecht, the claims that Frankfurt's sporting director have made about him being a key part of their future, he even said that Paxten would be a starter next season if everything goes well. I'm not sure about that, but I think he'll have a key part in their future, a key part in their plans next year. And I mean, if he's playing consistently for Frankfurt, that's such a high-level club, I think he makes his way into the conversation for 2026. A couple quick negatives, though, just 2 things. Number one, Taylor Booth, like you said, I think it's just indicative of his career, really. I think it's time for Booth to leave. This basically shuts the door for all opportunities for him. Although I will say, I think it is notable that Paxten, despite not having a preseason because he was at the Olympics with a new club that he's not even there permanently for, and I think Utrecht know they're not going to keep him permanently, despite all of that, he's still starting and playing over Booth. I think that's a real sign of how highly he's rated at the club and just how good of a player he is. And then the other negative, it's not a huge one, but he's playing out of position. He's on the left wing. He's so much better as a 10. I still think it's fine. I mean, like I said, he's so versatile, but I would have liked to see him playing in the middle a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that he's a player that can adapt to that position. And if he does well, I think that Frankfurt, I don't know about him starting, but he will integrate the squad, be a squad player next year. And that's a perfect gradual move upwards. So I think that is a really, really good move at the end of the day. For Booth, it's sad, but he needs to get a move. I think that he's one of those guys that he really needs to get a move, not just the ones that we always throw around. Needs to get a move. But moving on right here to Gabriel Slonina. Gaga made the move to the wrong League One or League he went to the League One right there, partnering up with Donovan Pines. So props to them. They seem to be doing really well there. At the time, I was a little bit pessimistic, but overall, I think it's giving him the minutes. He's doing well there, and the fans seem to like him. Maybe he finds himself in the championship next year. If he gets 1 season in the championship before 26, I think that's credible for a starting spot in the USMNT already, taking everything into consideration. Do you agree with me, Brenden? What do you think about this move for Gaga?
Well, I started with the positive for Paxten, so I'll start with the negatives for Slonina, and it's just, again, in 2 things. Number one, like you said, it's the wrong League One. I do think it's a little worrying that Chelsea prioritized Georgi Petrovic over Slonina. Yes, Petrovic is a solid keeper. I think he's a little bit underrated. I think he was very good for them last year. But Slonina is supposed to be their future, him and 5 other goalkeepers that they all signed. But they only have a certain number of international loan spots. They decided to send Petrovic to Strasbourg instead of Slonina. I think that's a little bit of a worry that they weren't prioritizing the future of Gaga to send him to the right club internationally, whether it's Strasbourg or somewhere else. But I still think he ended up in a good spot. The other negative is just one thing. Being in League One, they don't stop for the international break. So I think that heavily contributed to him not getting called up for this current USMNT camp, which would have been the perfect opportunity. 2 meaningless friendlies against Canada, who are solid, but New Zealand, I mean, we know they're a pretty low-quality opponent. No offense to them and to Tyler Benden, my absolute guy at center back. But it's just a shame to not see Slonina in with the national team, and I do wonder if this will impact his spot for this season. However, like you said, next season, I do think initially I was a little bit pessimistic, like you said, with going to League One. It's a bad level, but he's been so good for them. I think it's fair to say he's been the best goalkeeper in the league. I think he will be a championship player, whether it's with or without Barnsley next season. And if he does have that, like you said, I think he's a USMNT starting keeper.
Yeah, so I think everything kind of works out really, and the goalkeeper is not like the other positions where you need to adapt with your back line, but it's more replaceable really and more on the goal. So I think that missing out on these meaningless friendlies we're going to have against Mexico and Canada for 10,000 times anyways throughout the season, I think it's not really that big of a hit to his career. So moving on to Caleb Wiley right here, you mentioned Strasbourg. Oh, he's one of the 10,000 players Chelsea signed, and he actually went to Strasbourg. I'll be honest, I think that this guy is not going to be a fullback, in my opinion, but he seems to be doing well there. I think it's nice that he's getting that many minutes for Strasbourg, a club that has a good project. What do you think? Are you high on this one? Can he challenge Lund, or do you think he sticks more as a winger in the future?
I think Caleb Wiley is a really difficult one to analyze. I will start by saying this. I think his overall move to Chelsea was a disaster class because, I mean, we see how they're treating Slonina. We see how they treat all of their players, really. I mean, they use the baseball approach. We know Todd Boehly, he's a baseball guy. He owns an MLB club. He's doing the same thing here. He's signing all the young guys and he's basically just throwing darts at a map and seeing what sticks. And I don't know if Caleb Wiley will be one of the ones that sticks. For as good of a player he might be, I don't know if he's Chelsea level with how historically good they've been over the last 20 years. As for the Strasbourg move, I like the fact that he's testing himself immediately. I do think it's a little bit maybe too big of a step up from Atlanta to go to Ligue 1, a very solid mid-table club in Ligue 1. At that, I think maybe a year in the Eredivisie or maybe the Belgian league, somewhere like that first would have been a nice move. However, we know Chelsea have the connection with Strasbourg, which is a nice thing. It is a positive. Hopefully he signs there permanently and just gets out of Chelsea, because I think that would be best for his career long term. I will say, like you said, I don't know if he really has a position. I don't know if he's necessarily a fullback. He got caught out defensively a lot. He's been playing left wing back really for them in a weird back three formation, but he sticks really high kind of as a winger, and I think he's been caught out defensively a little bit too much in the first couple games of the season. It even led to him getting benched for the third one, although, hey, he came off the bench and got a beautiful assist. So at least there's that you can take away, but I just think he doesn't contribute enough to the attack to be a winger, and he doesn't really contribute enough to the defense to be a fullback. So in a back five system, which Strasbourg do play, maybe it's a good situation for him there, but for the USMNT, I'm not sure if we're going to play a back five. Personally, I'm kind of against that idea. I think 4-2-3-1 is where it's at for us, so I think from that perspective, it's not great, but from his career, I think it's a solid step up.
Yeah, I think that even when he came off the bench and got an assist, I'll be honest, the defensive shape with him at left back is what allowed Lyon to come back and win 4-3. It's sad, if we only look through apps, I think it was a good performance, but over watching, I really, it's one of those guys, like you said, does he have the pace and the trickiness to be a winger? I don't think he does. And does he have the solidity to be a defender? I don't think so either. But overall, if he can stay there and not be a part of the loan army for Chelsea, it's a good move. And for Chelsea, on what you said about Gaga, just really quickly, I don't think that he has a future there. I don't think that Wiley has a future there. No one has a future there. I think it's a crazy club. But anyways, he got the bridge to Europe, and that's all that matters, really, stepping up. And also props to Atlanta. It was like 11 million. It's like the highest of the century. No disrespect to Wiley, but hey, congrats to Atlanta. Moving on right here to three players. We're going to group them together because it's been quite extensive already on the video, but we have Santiago Castañeda, who you've been really high, I think one of the first ones to point out, Kayden Pierre, and Jonathan Gómez. Some crazy move right there, but what do you think about these three players? Just quickly your thoughts on them, Brenden.
Well, I'll start with Castañeda and then talk about the other two since they're both fullbacks. For Castañeda, like you said, I've been so high on this guy since last season. He's a bit of a weird one, took an unorthodox path through, I think he may have been even playing at high school at one point, but he was playing in local academies in Tampa Bay, made his way to the Rowdies in USL Championship, only played 2 games for them before moving to Duisburg in the German third tier last year. Despite the club getting relegated, I think he was very, very good in the league, especially for his first season in Europe. So good that he did get the move to Paderborn, who are a very solid team, mid to upper table in the Zweite Bundesliga, which is the second tier. And I mean, Paderborn, so far, he's started every game with them at the 6th position. They're 2 wins, 2 draw in the league, also won a game in the cup, which he did score his first goal. It was a very nice goal, so props to him for that. I think it's tough from him from a USMNT perspective, just because we've talked about so many of these sixes, even in this video. I mean, we have Tyler Adams, who's going to be coming back from injury. We have Johnny Cardoso, who we talked about. Tanner Tessmann, we talked about. Aidan Morris, we talked about, is now in Europe. You still have Leonard Maloney, who's playing in Europe now for Heidenheim, which is absolutely crazy to say. You have all these players, and I just don't know if Castañeda has a spot behind all of them. I will say, though, Maloney came kind of from under the radar because of his performances in this FIBA Bundesliga with Heidenheim. So, and Castañeda is a lot younger than him. He's still just 19. He's a 2004 birthday, so he'll turn 20 in a couple months. But his career is just, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He's going to be so good. Maybe not a USMNT option, but he's going to be an incredible player, probably in the Bundesliga for so many years. As for the other two, for Kayden Pierre, this one kind of took me by surprise because he hasn't really played too much for Sporting KC in the past couple of seasons. Injuries have played a part in that, but I think it's great. Anytime we have a young guy from MLS or even USL, we've already seen, like we just talked about Castañeda, players making the jump to Europe to try to challenge himself, regardless of whether it works or not. I think it's a huge positive sign. So I hope Pierre can succeed at Genk. I mean, he started already in a friendly for them after getting there. And our options at backup right back behind Dest and Scally, if one of them were to go down like Dest is now, are very thin. So if he can impress in Belgium, maybe he enters the conversation. As for Jogo, it's completely the opposite. Greece strikes again. We saw what they did to Conrad, although Conrad had a couple other things going on that wasn't all their fault. Eric Palmer-Brown as well goes there and gets a very obscure injury that kept him out for over a year. Now Jonathan Gómez goes there, and we were thinking, okay, maybe he's stepping up from the second division of Spain to play in European football. Well, they leave him out of their Europa League squad, and I don't know if he's going to even play for the club too much. I think it's just a shame because he is a player who showed a little bit of promise in the past. I think we kind of overhyped him because he's a dual national, but it's just a shame. I don't know if I'd say he's throwing his career away, but it's a huge step in the wrong direction for him.
Yeah, I was never too high on Jonathan Gómez, but I think that this is a new all-time low, really. I mean, the only attractive thing about going there is that you might find yourself in Europe. But anyways, I think with all these moves, I think that Castañeda is a guy that can be on everyone's radar if Paderborn, who historically are a good club, and to be playing. Imagine he gets promoted out of nowhere. We have a U20 player that finds himself in the top 5 league, and that would have gone under everyone's noses. So props on finding him and talking about him as well. Now we'll just group up right here very quickly. I don't think we need some much commentary on Tim Ream, John Brooks, and Jordan Pefok. Kind of boring, I think, for Ream. We said it in the past. Time for him to move to MLS. Brooks, it was kind of writing on the wall. Some people were really high on him, wanted him the USMNT last season, and we kind of called it that he wasn't really at that level. Any thoughts on them, or should we move to the biggest talking point of the window?
Well, like you said, they're not necessarily the most exciting moves, but I think they're worth discussing. They've earned the right to be in this video with what they've done in the past. For Ream, like you said, it's kind of the twilight of his career. He had that incredible renaissance 2 seasons ago, but making the move to Charlotte, I think he's going to be a standout defender for a couple of years in MLS. Maybe that means he still has a role with the USMNT. If he's there as a starter, in particular, even getting minutes, I think it's a real problem for 2026. That being said, maybe as a leader, considering our other center backs haven't stepped up, maybe I'd rather have him there as a center back 4 than someone like CCV or Trusty, who's playing in the Scottish League. Having him there as a leader could be valuable, but a great career for Tim Ream. Very, very applaudable. One of the most underrated ones we can have from a USMNT perspective. John Brooks as well. Like you said, he's not USMNT quality anymore. I do think it's nice that he kind of gets a nice little homecoming at Hertha Berlin, the club who he came up through the ranks at the academy level to their second team, their first team, played so many games for them in the past. They're in this FIBA Bundesliga as well. He'll be going against some of our other guys there. And again, he's not a USMNT level player, but it'll be nice seeing him at his hometown club again. And then for Jordan Pefok, it's kind of weird how we have a Bundesliga starting striker and he never even gets mentioned. I do think it's warranted. I don't know if he's USMNT quality, especially with the other options we have, but I think it's nice how he got the loan to Gladbach last season and somehow in the preseason implemented himself back into the plans of Union Berlin, so much so that he's now starting for them. He started all 3 games to start the year. He hasn't got a goal contribution yet, which is maybe a little concerning, but I think he'll get a couple. He's a solid Bundesliga journeyman striker, which honestly, it's just something cool to have in the pool. So at least there's that.
Yeah, it shows that we're moving in the right direction because, for example, Brazil, I know it's a crazy comparison, but they have crazy players that never are going to get called up in every league, maybe for some solid clubs as well. So we need to get used to this. Some guys won't really get in the USMNT team at A roster, but just to have him around and as an option if everyone gets injured, it's better than not having him. And it helps raise a little bit the respect for the nation as a soccer nation. So moving on to the guy that we all thought needed a move. I think everyone, I would be surprised if anyone would like to argue that he should have stayed at Dortmund. It's Gio Reyna. Very quiet summer. There was never any moment where there were rumors that he would get a move, and ultimately he gets to stay. But Sebastian Kell, who's a sporting director, former player, came out and said he needs to accept his role, and Sahin clearly doesn't really rate him. Gio Reyna finding himself in Dortmund again. Do you think he should have gotten a move? Do you think he will get a move in January? Your thoughts on this, Brenden? Do you think he salvages his career? And somehow he's injured too. Not trying to knock the man while he's down, but very disappointing because I think that Tillman also fits Pod's style a little bit better. Your thoughts, Brenden?
What a way to end the video, right? What a crazy, concerning topic, because I mean, I think we made a video about Reyna recently, and I mean, I know we made one as well last season. It seems like we can make an individual video about Reyna's situation every month. It's kind of sad to see because he did show so much promise early in his career. And I know that a lot of people were surprised to not see really any rumors for him moving on this summer, but I'm going to be honest, I think there's a lot of valid reasons why that didn't happen. For one, his injury history. I mean, we know anytime he's playing regularly, he gets injured, and even now, he hasn't played at all. He's played, 10 minutes so far in the Bundesliga for Dortmund to start the season. He's just been a bench player. He comes into USMNT camp. This is his chance to impress because it's the final camp before Poch comes in, hopefully at least, and he's now fighting, like you said, with Malik Tillman, who I think is probably a better player right now. Definitely in better form, fits Poch's system better, like you said, and this was his chance to fight it out, prove why he's still the number one guy there. Now he gets injured, and not only does he miss the camp, miss the chance, maybe Brenden Aaronson will get opportunities at the 10, who I think also fits Poch's system a little bit better. There's other guys as well that we already talked about, like Paxten, even players like Diego Luna that can also step up. I'm not saying Reyna's out of the USMNT picture or anything like that. That's insane. But now with this injury, he was already not getting minutes at Dortmund. Now he has to come back from this. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. I will say, if it's just a precaution, it's a good thing to leave him out of the camp because we saw what happened to Tyler Adams. We saw what happened to him. He came back too early, got injured. He's still injured now. If Reyna's just that situation, it's good. But I think staying at Dortmund was a huge mistake. I think he needs to accept his role at a lower level club. It's still in the top 5 league, granted, but mid-table, maybe even a relegation battler, somewhere that will accept him, somewhere that he can lower his wage demands to go to, because we talked about this last January. The only league that could afford to pay his wages was the Prem. He ended up going to Forest. We know his agent, Jorge Mendes, doesn't care about him because he's not a high-level client. I mean, although that being said, he did have a loan option to Bochum, who are at that level, a relegation battler in Bundesliga that he didn't take because Dortmund rejected it. Mendes was up for it. Reyna was up for it. There's always someone ruining his career, and this time it was Dortmund. It's just a huge shame. And I think it might be crazy to say, but I think we might be to the point where Cole Campbell has more of a future at Dortmund, maybe even this season, than Reyna does, probably more next season, but I think he's the one we really, really need to watch out for. Reyna needs to leave ASAP, maybe not in January because we saw how bad that worked out last time, but next summer he needs to move on and just revamp his career, really.
Yeah, I think he's a really high risk and really low reward type of player for any club that would realistically use him, which would be a semi-relegation battling team. I don't think he fits that type of club that would be fighting for their lives. So I think the lower mid-table is probably more suitable. But then his wages, he earns 2.2 million a year. That's what Kubo earns. Takefusa Kubo from Real Sociedad earns that. Andrea Colpani from Fiorentina earns less than that. And those are two guys that I think we can kind of compare in terms of hype and quality. So I think it's really tough. Let us know in the comments below. What do you think? I think that it's really sad that Gio didn't get a move, especially with the new system with Poch. I think that overall, in the long term, we might find ourselves in 26 heading to the World Cup with Tillman ahead of him. And I don't really have that too much of a problem because sadly, things are not moving well as we all expected for Gio. Bit of a long video, but it was nice to see you guys again being back on the channel. Again, please give us a chance in these solo videos that we'll be doing. We'll also be doing at least one video as a duo per week. So things will be slowly getting back to normal, and hopefully you guys will keep tuning in. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.